My name is Tedra Noonan. I'm making this video mainly so people who don't know me at all, or people who might know me a little bit, can kind of get to know me a little more on a casual level. I don't want to come off, as I've said before, like I'm doing this inked competition for egotistical reasons. It's deeper than that for me. This is my third attempt, but it's also my final attempt. I am trying to put my all into it. I am trying to stick out a little bit. One of the ways I thought I could do that would be to invite people to know a little bit more about me as a person, how that affected this journey that brought me to doing this competition in the first place, and what tattoos mean to me, and just kind of general information about who I am, because let me tell you, there's a lot to know. To be honest and candid, all of this has made me very nervous and very anxious. I put it on my best face and try my hardest, but it is different. It's hard putting yourself out there, and opportunities like this don't happen to me normally in my life. Not this big, anyways. And I usually don't get more than one chance at something that comes around that is this big. So feels like this time is my time. I'm hoping that it is. I think that I could bring a lot to the table by winning this, not just for selfish reasons. I'm not saying that anybody who does win is selfish, but I mean, I know that it comes off that way to some people who don't quite understand what tattoos can mean to individuals. It's deeper than a lot of people think, and it is an art form, and it is a very personal thing. I think this platform is a great way and an opportunity for me to not only showcase some amazing artwork on my body, but to generally help and support people like I've always wanted to in my life. That being said, it is scary, and I've been content and happy with what life has given me so far, but I am trying to take chances and expand beyond the contentness and take the risks, because you can't have the rewards without the risks. With that being said, my interviewer, secret voice.
Have you always lived on Cape Cod?
I have not actually always lived on this lovely island that we call Cape Cod. I'm actually not filming this on Cape Cod right now, but I do reside on Cape Cod. My mother does, and my daughter does. I actually, though, was born in Los Angeles, California, West Side, but I was adopted at birth, hence why I have a Irish last name, and I'm not Irish. My biological family was Mexico, and my biological mother came over to give birth to me in Los Angeles so that I could be a naturalized citizen from birth, which just makes the whole process easier. My adoptive mother went through an agency, so it was all planned out, and she was living in San Francisco at the time. I'm working there, and originally, though, her family and her were from Massachusetts and from the Cape, so even though I was born on the West Coast in the beginning, we ended up moving back here because her family was here and we owned a family business, a restaurant. I think she felt she had more support she adopted me as a single parent, so that obviously is difficult, and you're gonna want your family to be there to help, and was important to the entire family. So we ended up moving back permanently when I was really young. Primarily, I've resided on Cape Cod, yes.
So you were adopted. Has that had an impact on your life?
Yeah, I think for most people, not to speak for everybody, but I think adoption in general is a tough subject sometimes and a tough thing to handle. In my personal case, there was an added layer of being so ethnically different from my adoptive family. I didn't look like them. I kind of struggled with that and feeling as though I never really belonged, never really was a part of fully in ways. Going to school on the Cape, it's definitely its own place. Once you cross that bridge, it's like you're kind of time traveling backwards. So I did deal with a little bit of ignorance growing up. I didn't look like the average student. People didn't understand what I was. People didn't understand that I was adopted. I think there is a lack of education here on the Cape. I experienced it. I know my daughter experiences it now still. So hopefully one day that can change a little bit. But aside from the outside influences internally, I struggled my whole life. I think always wanting to find that home and that feeling of being surrounded by people that I felt I belonged with, or I felt like I had connections with. My adoptive mother and I, although I've always loved each other, definitely had times in the past where we struggled to get along. We're just very different people. We have different views on things, and that didn't help either. Sometimes not having another parent in the household didn't really help. Not to put blame on her for that. I just mean it was definitely hard to gain a sense of self. I kind of had to take bits and pieces from different friend groups. I was kind of the person who would have friends in every friend group. I was friends with everybody because I could connect with a little bit of everybody, but I still just felt alone, even though I did have people around. It was hard. I actually thought that I would somehow find home by avoiding college and joining the Peace Corps instead. Don't ask if it was 17-year-old logic. I actually got pretty far behind my mother's back doing it. I went to a couple different meetings and I was this close, and then she caught me and found out and was like, "You are out of your mind if you think you're not going to college. You can join the Peace Corps at any time in your life. You're going to college." So, with that squashed, I listened, and I had already been creative and into art, so I applied to a lot of art schools, and I eventually did get accepted to two of them, UMass Dartmouth and Savannah College of Art and Design, which I originally did not even want to apply to because it was a big name, intimidating. But my art teacher convinced me, and I really didn't think I was going to get in, but I did. So I was faced with the choice of staying close to home, safe, or exploring like I was originally trying to do. Kind of as scary in the moment as that was, I chose Savannah. And it was a little influence. My mom and I had visited shortly before that, and there was something about that city that caught my heart right away. So I decided to go, and I didn't know anyone, and I was all gung ho. And then I got there, and most parents stayed for about a week, and then they left. And when my mom was getting, she had a flight booked and everything, but I immediately panicked and told her that she needed to stay for another week. So my mother ended up staying for 2 weeks and then literally had to pry me off of her and leave and tell me that I was going to be okay. And I sat like a little kid at preschool on the curb and cried and watched her drive away, which is embarrassing. But it's scary. It is scary, being that young and being in a whole new state, in a whole new setting with all these people from literally around the globe. I mean, kids who went to school, dreaming of going to this college, and I'm there like, just a fish out of water, like completely. So it didn't really hit until I was there, I don't think. But I met a lot of really interesting people from all around the country and all around the world, and we were grouped together. And to make us feel a little more comfortable, they kind of put the freshmen all in the same classes for the first like couple quarters, so you get to know each other. And one kid spoke one day, and I heard that familiar absence of R's, and yeah, I was intrigued.
Who was that kid from Boston?
He turned out to be the one and only TJ Bransfield, also known as Timmy Sneaks. If you look him up on social media, he has quite the career now. I'm very proud of him. He's done great things. He's a great person, actually, genuinely. He kind of was my introduction to the world of independent tattooing. And it was nice to have someone from home. I remember I heard his voice, and he said that he saw me sitting there wearing my Bury Your Dead Boston hardcore band t-shirt. And so we immediately beeline for each other after class, like, who are you? Where are you from? Yeah, we were both from good old Massachusetts. He was a huge influence and a huge part of the beginning of my time in Georgia, for sure. Actually, it's kind of cool because my rosary was the second tattoo that he had ever done, and I was the guinea pig. My other roommate at the time was his first tattoo on another person, same night. And I have this one that he did later on when he worked in a shop. So it's nice to be able to say that I kind of have a little bit of an evolution of an artist on my skin.
What was your first tattoo?
My first tattoo actually was co-signed by my mother. I want that on record. I was 17, and she had told me that she would get me a tattoo for my birthday because I had expressed that I wanted one. We both thought it was one. So she went online and did her Google wing and found a tattoo place that had to be in Rhode Island because Massachusetts law wouldn't allow. Well, it was a week away from my 18th birthday, so Rhode Island allowed 17-year-olds to get tattoos if they had their parents' permission. So it was Sin on Skin in Tiverton, Rhode Island. And I knew nothing about it actually. So, long story short, it turned out to be mainly a biker tattoo shop. It was very small. It was a circle of large, scary, intimidating bikers sitting outside when I first showed up with my mother, and I immediately was like, nope, we're not going in until they leave. I made my mom wait in the car with me until they left the outside. And then I went inside. I had decided that I wanted angel wings. We had found a couple images online that we brought with us. The one that I gave the artist, his name is Gary, they were about this big. My mom and I said we were going to put them on my shoulder blades. Gary, being the artist, took the image, went back though, did a little tweaking, added this little bit, and made them look much better than what my printout was. But they were also a little bit larger. And he made I don't want to say mistake. My mother would probably say mistake. But he made the choice to ask me the question, do you want them bigger? And I said yes. They went from this big to like this big. And ended up being 2 3-hour sessions total. One for lining, one for shading. He had told me that he gives his clients nicknames. And my nickname at the end, he said, was LB. And I was like, what the hell is LB? And he said, little badass. So I was all pumped up because I was at a biker shop and I had just been given the nickname of little badass. And I'm 17, so of course I think I'm cool. until I walk out in the front room and show my mother that they're like 3 times bigger than what she thought. So that ended pretty quickly. But we still thought it was like one and done at that point in time. I believed that a woman should have a choice, but I had always thought that it wasn't going to be a choice of mine. In this case, it was the best choice to make. So ultimately, that decision was made, and I tried to go back to school after and act like everything was normal, but it wasn't. It's a traumatic thing to go through. I stayed and continued to go to school, and I just kept withdrawing and failing out of classes. So in January 2010, I came back home for good. I was very sad about that, but I don't really regret any of the experiences there. I had a really good time, and I learned a lot and fell in love with a brand new city. So,
What was it like coming back after a few years? Was it an easy transition, or did you find it difficult to adjust being back home again?
it was not an easy transition. I think I thought it was, but I quickly found out that I had missed out on a lot. My friends that had just been smoking weed and were now moved on to bigger and better things. I just wasn't in the loop, and I dated somebody who unfortunately had to go to prison, and I then started hanging out around that time with a friend from school. We ended up kind of dating casually, but before long, I was pregnant again, and I just thought that my mother would kind of react the same way that she did before when I told her, but she did not. It was the opposite. She was not happy at all with me. We had a big blowout, I believe, and I didn't live with her. We didn't really speak. We had to work together, but other than that, pregnancy really wasn't great in terms of that. My relationship with this person fizzled out too. At the same time, we were having issues, so I felt really alone. I just didn't really feel like I was being heard.
It must have been hard. That must have been hard thinking, feeling like you had minimal to no support.
Yeah, it was really hard, and I think that combined with my friends now dealing with pills, mainly perk 30s. I had infiltrated the Cape at that point. Nobody really knew. We were really naive and kind of sheltered, not like the cities in the rest of Massachusetts. So no one really knew what we were doing. I had taken them before when my wisdom teeth were out. I had been given Oxycontin when I gave birth after because I didn't have an epidural. And I don't think I understood that even just those two things had already flipped a switch in my brain, and I was a little too curious about the perk. I stayed away from them for a little bit, but ultimately tried it, and those were the things that had a hold on me. I kind of gave in to some vices.
What do you mean by vices?
I think I was very naive in terms of education about addiction. So even though I started with the perks, I didn't quite realize that it was going to progress to ultimately, further opiates like heroin. And it was going to progress like the disease does. And mine progressed very quickly. I found myself doing a lot of things I normally wouldn't do, taking a lot of risks and putting myself in situations that were dangerous. Luckily, I had a couple of people that tried to keep me as safe as they could, and I'm grateful for that. But I did see a lot
and I was around a lot of violence and dangerous things and death. It continued a pattern and a cycle that just got worse and worse over time. I did try over and over again to get better, but I didn't quite understand. I just would keep falling into it again and again until about 2015. My aunt passed away. I was in a really bad place. I had lost a lot of friends, and that was kind of like my worst, my bottom. I knew I needed to go again to a 30-day facility, which I did. So in 2016, my mom also told me that after my aunt passed, she was selling the business, which was kind of always my plan B. So that threw me for a little bit of a loop. So when I got out of this program, I had no plan B, no job, no car, no money, and I was not allowed to live at home. So I kind of went from thinking I had a fallback plan to not really knowing what to do.
What did you end up doing? Where did you live?
I actually ended up going to New Bedford. I had met somebody in the detox before the 30-day program, and we had kept speaking on the phone, and he offered to let me stay with him in New Bedford and his family for a little bit until I could figure things out and get a car and at least be somewhat on my feet again. And I did stay clean for a little bit. I did end up coming back to Falmouth, though. Usually the motivation was always to be closer to my daughter. But ultimately, I think it was still too soon because I did relapse again. It wasn't a long one, but I had made a couple new friends. One of them lived near the New Hampshire border, but he was living in a sober house on Cape. He offered to have me come stay with him to get out of my situation and just change surroundings. And I thought about it, decided to do that, but unfortunately, I was still using. I had never had a real overdose. Unfortunately, this person was the one that witnessed my one real overdose. And from what I've heard, it was a situation where I probably shouldn't be here today. And I don't know why I am, but obviously I have a purpose. I am very grateful that I came out of it, but it changed what I thought I knew about life and death. A lot of people think that I'm like obsessed with death because a lot of my tattoos have death related themes, and I'm not obsessed with death, but that brush with death, or I guess I was faced with it, really shook me, and I had to choose between being afraid of it forever or accepting it as something that is inevitable for everybody. I didn't want to choose it for myself. I wanted it to choose me whenever the time was right, and the time was not right then. It definitely shook up a lot of my core thoughts and things that I believed.
So the overdose really changed your whole outlook on life.
Yeah, everything I thought I knew was not what I thought I knew. It definitely gave me a new perspective on things and a new way of wanting to live in the moment and not be afraid of death, but also try to be as present, because you never know. You never know what can happen. I started living my life a little differently starting then. And I did get on medication assisted treatment to help me after that, Suboxone, which I was on for about 4-ish years. But if I wanted custody back, I did know that I probably needed to get off of that. So I did start trying to wean myself off of it at home. And that was interesting, to say the least. Yeah, it was probably one of the worst experiences, completely, spiritually, mentally, physically. It was terrible. I'm not gonna lie. I couldn't get out of bed for months, and the mental toll it took was much, much longer, arguably permanent. I think it maybe pulled out some things that were dormant in me, and I didn't know how to handle that all the time. So I had a rough couple of years after coming off of it. I did successfully come off of it, but success to me is a kind of subjective word in that sense because I feel like I also was changed just in that situation alone too.
So how long have you been substance drug free now?
I have not touched my drug of choice. This fall it'll be 8 years. and I will be off of Suboxone around spring, early summer, 4 years now. I just want to say though, being clean is not easy. It hasn't been an easy 8 years, and not just because of getting off of Suboxone and things like that. Dealing with life on life terms, as I like to say, dealing with things that you suppress when you're using, and all the feelings that come back, and you don't stop losing people. You know, we all know that there was an opiate epidemic, and we were losing people left and right still, and it was really hard to deal with that sober. Although I am very grateful for these 8 years, and although I've done a lot of work to try to come out of it as best as I can, I cannot say that it was an easy 8 years. I cannot say that I'm the same person that I was. I tried to make the best of it, but it absolutely changed me. It did lead me, though, to a couple different avenues in life that maybe had I not gone through it, it wouldn't have. I wanted some memorial tattoos, and now that TJ was not doing tattooing anymore, he was focusing on his art, I was kind of waiting to find another artist that I liked. And my boyfriend at the time said that he wanted me to meet someone, and it turned out to be Boston Bonnie. And she was very influential in the tattoo industry in her heyday, and she had a lot to do with the legislature in Massachusetts surrounding tattoos. She was a strong woman in a male dominated field, and she's amazing at her craft. And I was very intimidated when I learned that that's who he wanted to introduce me to. But he promised that we were going to be best friends. I have a little bit of a dark aesthetic that some people don't always quite understand. But I walked into her house for the first time, and it looks like a museum, and there's all kinds of oddities and skulls and things that I would love to have in my house there, and I instantly built it home. And then she turned around the corner, and it was kind of like looking in a mirror. We were both wearing all black, Morticia vibes. She looked at me, I looked at her, and a really good friendship started. The first piece she did for me was my crybaby tattoo on my leg, and it was important to me because I had drawn the stencil. It's from the Johnny Depp campy old movie. Yes, that one, Crybaby. Also, everyone in my life that knows me calls me a crybaby, so it was fitting. But she did an amazing job, and I think my favorite part of that whole experience was just getting to know her as a person and connecting so quickly and so easily, feeling like I knew her forever.
You said you two clicked instantly. Was that what solidified your interest in tattooing?
I think so. I think she definitely inspired me. I think she showed me that timing doesn't matter. Situationally, she's working out of her house. She's not at a studio, working in the studios and things like that. It was a while ago, but she still loves what she does, and she's still very good at what she does. She's also a Gemini like me. She influenced me a lot. I ended up going to her a lot, and not just for tattoos. It means just to hang out sometimes. So we became friends, and in that friendship, she was one of the people that influenced my decision to originally do my first attempt at the Inked Covergirl. I just kind of asked her opinion, and she didn't know much about it at the time, but she told me to go for it. So I did. I gave it a good shot.
Do you think there were things still holding you back in that first attempt?
Yeah, I do. I think I'm my own worst enemy. I get in my head. I think I overanalyze. I second guess myself a lot. So even though I have somebody like her who I listen to and I trust her word, I still will get in my own way if I allow it. And I didn't make it all that far the first time, but it did kind of put a little spark under me. So I tried again a second time, and I made it to the quarterfinal time. But my life is my life, and it is interesting at great times. So right then was when my ex tried to take his own life and ended up in jail. And I had to come home. And within about a month, my mother slipped in the middle of the night and fell and broke multiple ribs, ruptured her spleen. She's in her, 70s. Sorry, Mom, but it's true. She and I both think it was divine intervention that I was there that night, because had I still been with my ex, I would have been in a different place. I wouldn't have been there at all. And then my brain and tendency to not remember what I'm doing also helped for once, because I forgot toilet paper to ring downstairs 3 times. So I was upstairs going for my third time. Apparently, she had been calling for me, but I didn't hear her. I was 2 floors down. So had I not forgotten that toilet paper, I wouldn't have heard her. And she would have bled out internally. I mean, she was really, really close to not making it. And that was definitely a reality check for both of us. It was scary. It was definitely scary. She had to be med flighted, and then we both found out that we had COVID. On top of all that, she got treatment in the hospital. I did not, because I was at home. So when she came home, she was okay, but I was viciously sick, and I had to take care of her by myself for like 3 months. So I really couldn't do all of it, and I had to let go of continuing to push with things, unfortunately. But family comes first, and I wanted her to know that I would be there for her, and I would prioritize her and her health, and make sure that she was okay, because it's just me and her at the end of the day. So I want her to feel secure in that. And now this will be my third and final time.
It sounds like you've put in hard work to really change your attack on some things in life. Do you have any specific plans, ways to try to help others if you do become the 2024 Inked Covergirl?
For sure. And I think it's been a common theme, a common thread in my life, that I want to help anybody that I see that needs help. Right now, after finding out later on in life that I was very Indigenous, I started educating myself more about problems surrounding Indigenous people, especially Indigenous women. Last year, I tried to do some activism for a few different things, but one of them being MMIW, which is Missing and Murdered Indigenous Women. And it's a huge problem in this country. Researching and educating myself, I was just kind of disgusted by some of the statistics. Indigenous women are 2.5 times more likely to be the victim of a violent assault, and they are also 2 times more likely to be sexually assaulted or raped than any other ethnic group. Personally, that hits home for me, and it angers me, and I want to educate people and be a voice. It's hard though, because I don't have a tribe, and I am only one person, but I know that I'll figure something out. I did try to bring awareness to a local woman, Crystal Perry. Last year was 10 years since she was murdered in a terrible way that she didn't deserve. No one deserves. And nothing has been done. And I just feel for her. I see myself in her. It angered me that in a place where there's a lot of affluent people and places and things, that so many people were so complacent, willing to brush something so horrible under the rug, and that her family 10 years later still has no answers and no justice. She was a human being. It didn't matter at the end of the day what else happened in her life. Nobody deserves what happened there. I've tried to do what I can to bring awareness to that. Will always try to do what I can to bring awareness to that. And there's other Indigenous women too. But I just felt, since it was a 10-year anniversary last year and they still had basically nothing, that it was important to be a voice for her. Being a survivor of domestic violence and abuse myself, I did try to get involved a little bit with that. I did a silent witness display, and that was just for my state, just in the last year, and it was a minimized list, and it was still a lot of names of women and children. It's a big problem, not just in this state, but also, again, nationwide. Everyone knows someone, I will tell you that. it needs to be out in the open. People need to speak up about it, and people need to not shame. People need to listen when someone speaks out. And in doing that silent witness display, even just researching the cases really hurt my heart because of how horrible the reality of that was. And women and children should be treated with more respect. I've learned things by dipping my feet in the activism pool, what works, what doesn't. And I think the biggest thing is finding like minded people who can band together and make a difference. And I want to do that. I think this is a great platform to use my voice. Not only because I love tattoos and I love art and I love that whole industry. It's like the charity, music care, and we all understand that mental health awareness is important. Supporting people is important. It doesn't matter gender, race. We're all human and we all sometimes need help. We all sometimes don't have it, and sometimes we don't have the outlets to speak. Ultimately, I want to be somebody that my daughter can look at and be proud of, not just for accomplishing something like being on the cover of a magazine, but continuing that by trying to do better for more than just myself. Because I want to. I genuinely care for other people as though they were my own family, and I see my daughter and myself in others. I understand that sometimes it takes one person to be that person to risk whatever you have and be the first one to stand up though and say this isn't right and this needs to change. And at this point in my life, having been through what I've been through in only 34 years, I feel like I can relate to a lot of different people, a lot of different demographics, things that a lot of people won't experience hopefully in a lifetime. And I don't even want to say unfortunately I have, because I feel fortunate that in all this pain and suffering, maybe the purpose was to help others so that they don't have to suffer. I think the biggest accomplishment I could have in life one day would be to be a person my daughter could point to somewhere or in a book or on a mural, I don't care, anywhere, and say, that's my mom. She did that. She changed this. She saved lives. All I want is to give to people what they deserve, try to right any wrongs that I made by being selfless and staying humble and staying grateful, but at the same time, reaching for the stars. Thanks, guys.